Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you here on Dee's Delights. It is about 8:30 on a Wednesday morning. Today is my day off, so I sleep until about 8 o'clock on Wednesdays. And I thought, well, I better get started because I've got to put a piece of London broil, I think is what I got. London broil top round roast. I'm going to make a roast today and I got to put it in the crock pot for between 7 to 8 hours. All you're going to need for this, now the recipe calls for 3 pounds of beef roast, such as chuck roast. Well, I went to the store and I didn't feel like shopping around. They didn't have any chuck roast yesterday. So I got a London broil top round. But meat is so expensive and it's just going to be for Doug and I. So I didn't get 3 pounds. I got 2.25 pounds and that was 15 bucks. I'm cheap. I'm not spending more than 15 bucks for Doug and I to eat some meat, even though this will make a couple of meals. So I filled this up to 2 cups. So if you can, get a bigger bowl or just get a 4-cup measuring cup. That way you can fill it up to the 2-cup mark and you can add the ingredients right here and mix it up and you don't need to dirty another bowl. But that's up to you. If you don't have a 4-cup, just get a little bowl and pour the water in and mix everything up. We're going to need 3 ingredients to make this roast beef tender and delicious. Ranch salad dressing mix. Now this size here is the 1 ounce packet. We're going to need an Italian seasoning dressing and recipe mix. This one is 0.7 ounce. And that's the Good Seasons brand. This is the Hidden Valley brand. That's just usually what I have. You can use whatever. And also, I usually would have picked up brown gravy by McCormick. That's usually what I would have picked up, and that would have been like the 0.87 ounce. But I couldn't find that yesterday at the store. Of course, they sold those all out. So I got Pioneer. We'll see how this does. Brown gravy mix, but it's about double the size, so I'm going to have to cut this one in half. So each of them is just a little under an ounce or an ounce. So ranch seasoning, Italian seasoning, and brown gravy, which normally though I prefer the McCormick. So let's get started. You're going to be amazed at how good this roast tastes and so simple to make. We're going to make some honey roasted potatoes. I'm not going to put them in the crock pot. I don't like my potatoes put in the crock pot. I would rather have them not so, I wouldn't say soggy, but I just don't like them cooked all day. I'm sure a lot of you do. Oh, see, I just went ahead. I put too much in, wasn't even paying attention, trying to talk. So I'm going to scoop some of that gravy stuff right back out. See how quick I can do that? You're going to learn here. Let's get a little bit more out. That'll be good. That was probably about half that I just got out of there. I can't talk and do other things at the same time. So yeah, I got about half in there. We'll mix that around first. Then I'm going to add the Italian seasoning. Get that stirred up real good. Then the ranch. Now the ranch gets a little clumpy in here, so I try to mix that around better and with a little fork try to get those clumps out. I got my crock pot here. What we want to do is put the roast in the bottom of the crock pot because it says, let's see here, brown the roast if desired, add the meat to your cooker. Pour the water, salad dressing mixture over the roast. In the slow cooker, cook it on high. If you want to do it for a shorter term, cook it on high for 4 hours or on low for 8. Now I've cooked it on low before for 7 and it still turns out fine. But it calls for 8. So you do what you like. So here it goes. 1 piece of meat thrown into the cooker. As you can see, I washed my hands, but I didn't do any good. I just washed it to get the little bit of bloody, sticky stuff off. Okay, I'm gonna get this just a little bit smoother here. And actually, it'll cook apart as it cooks all day in the crock pot. So here, I'm gonna show you, bring this over here. I'm gonna show you what I'm doing. We'll pour this in. I'm just gonna pour it over the meat. And it's not even covering the meat. It's gonna cook in that mixture of gravy, ranch, and Italian seasoning for 8 hours now on low. I'm gonna put this in here, cover it up, put it on low for 8 hours. It's really easy to do. And then I'll be back. I'm just gonna make a few noodles to go with it because the broth from that is delicious. Pour it in a pan, dilute it because it's going to be quite strong, and then you can use it for noodle broth or gravy. So we'll do that, and then I'm also going to make you some honey roasted potatoes out of some little red skin potatoes. So I'll be back in about 8 hours. So next up to go with our roast is honey roasted red potatoes. Normally I would buy a bag of regular sized red potatoes and then cut them into quarters or smaller. But today I happen to have these little ruby red round potatoes. That's gonna have to do. I'll probably still maybe cut those in half. That way it doesn't have to bake as long for them to get soft inside. I don't know, we'll see. So today's recipe is, I've changed it a little bit. So I'm gonna tell you what I did. I like to have a little bit more honey and butter, just a little bit more onions and everything on it. I like it to bake it longer and a little higher temperature than it's called for. So I am melting butter. Once again, butter, butter, butter. What's a recipe without butter? Nothing. You gotta have butter. Butter is like a staple food. It keeps everything well oiled. So first I'm gonna start, I just put those scissors away and I need them. I'm gonna start by opening up this bag of red little potatoes. And this is a 24-ounce bag. It's 1 pound, 8 ounces. So it's 1.5 pounds. Normally, a lot of times, I'll make 3 pounds of these potatoes. And the recipe here is showing for 1 pound. So I'm doing 1.5 pounds today. So that's what we're gonna work with. Unless you have a big family, you may wanna double this. But for us old farts, where it's just us at the house, makes no sense to make too much food. We'll eat some leftovers, but after a day or two, we get sick of leftovers. So I'm gonna pour these potatoes into a bag. Wash them off. Make sure you wash everything off. Then I'm going to set these here and I'm going to cut them in half. There again, you can adjust the recipe, whatever suits you to adjust it. Just going to cut them in half. Little bite-sized morsels. And these honey potatoes are good. Of course you have to like honey. If you don't like honey, you might as well forget that. I could have showed you another air-fried potato recipe that's really good with Parmesan cheese and oil, and butter and onions. Ah, so good, so good. I'll cut these up, and that one's a little bit brown. Cut these up and I'll probably re-wash it again. So this will go with our roast. You can make any kind of potato. A lot of times some people just may want to make some mashed potato recipes. There's a lot of recipes you can do with mashed potatoes that would go good with the beef, because I'm going to make some noodles out of the broth. I'm going to dilute the broth. I'm going to make noodles. I'm going to make a little gravy. Doug's not a gravy fan, but I like gravy. I like gravy on, especially when I have turkey, because turkey tends to be a little bit drier meat. I don't see how people can eat it without gravy. but to each his own. Okay, let's see here. There's probably a little bit faster way of doing this, but there again, I'm kind of basic in the kitchen. It's not like I went to school. We had home ec class when we were kids. I watched my mother cook. That's about it. And then it's just trial and error for the rest of your life. But there are a lot of cooking shows out there. I never watch those. Here I am. Now I have one, but I never watch cooking shows. But I know a lot of people who do. And I'm sure there's some good advice and good recipes. See what we do. So it says to preheat the oven at 375. I preheated it at 400. Lightly coat an 11 by 7 inch baking dish with non-stick cooking spray. I did a 9 by 13 and I did it with butter. Rarely do I have cooking spray in the house. Butter's just as good. So I'm going to place the potatoes in a single layer in prepared dish and top with onions. I might dry these potatoes off just a bit, shake them off a little bit more. I want the mixture to stick to them. Let's just see here. Of course, I'm out of paper towels. They're downstairs. Too lazy to go down, so I'm just going to dry it by putting the napkin across it a little bit to get rid of the excess moisture. Hopefully there's no chunks of napkin on it now. Good enough. Good enough. Okay. Spread that across. That's 1.5 pounds of potatoes. So this fills the whole pan. I put a 1/4 cup of onions. So I have 1.5 pounds of little potatoes cut in half, buttered on the bottom. I'm going to sprinkle the onions across. Might have to sprinkle them like this. See what's next. In a small bowl, combine melted butter, honey mustard, salt and pepper, and drizzle over potatoes. So I am going to get, I'm using way more than the recipe calls for, but I'm going to use 4 tablespoons of butter. It's not way more, it's more. And I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of honey. So I don't feel like measuring out 2 tablespoons, so I'm going to do about half of a 1/4 of a cup, which would be, I guess, 1/8 of a cup, which would be 2 tablespoons. So about 1/8 of a cup of honey. And you know what? I'm just going to put just a little bit more on there. You can't have too much honey. We're going to mix this in a little bowl. Because, you know, you got to dirty up more and more dishes. The more dishes you have to clean up, the more fun you'll have in the kitchen. Okay. So we'll do the 4 tablespoons melted butter, which is 1/4 of a cup. Got 1/8 of a cup of honey, which is 2 tablespoons. I probably have about a little over that. Mix that in the butter. Now I've had that honey in there for a while, but I don't see an expiration date. I think honey stays good for a while, I'm hoping. I don't think you can get any weird, like botulism or anything like that. Hope not. Then we need 1 teaspoon dried. So I'm going to do half of a tablespoon. I'm going to make it 1.5 teaspoons. So about half, throw that in there. What else is it calling for? And I'm not going to mix the salt and pepper in there. I'm just going to sprinkle it over when I'm done with this mixture. And what we're supposed to do is drizzle it now over the potatoes. So I'm just going to go like this. And I'm tempted to make a little bit more of this because This is what makes these potatoes excellent. But I guess it's good enough. You don't want any to go without any topping. See what it says. Bake in preheated oven there again. And you're gonna put it in, I do it for at least 40 minutes, stir it halfway through. If you like them a little bit softer, go for, you know what? Do I want to put salt and pepper on these? Why would I put it on when you can salt and pepper your own food when you're done? When you're putting it on your plate, then you can salt and pepper it. So I'm not going to put any salt and pepper on it. Let's see here if I've got everything. And I'm going to bake it uncovered. We'll start with 20 minutes, see how we go. I'll be back in 20. Just about time to stir the potatoes, which would be halfway through. But one interesting thing, I wondered if the honey had gone bad, because I can't remember how long it's been since I opened it, but I have stored it in the cabinet. Listen to this. It says you don't have to toss that honey. Even if honey had been sitting on your shelf for 2,000 years, that honey would still be as good as the day you opened it. In a nutshell, well-stored honey never expires or spoils, even if it's been previously opened. So I could set this bottle of honey in here, as long as I have it sealed. I've already opened it. It could sit there to the year, what would that be, 4020? And it would still be good. I think I'm just going to let it in my cabinet. Maybe leave it here if we ever sell the house for the next people, and they can just keep on passing it on until the bottle's gone. Still be good. Great news about honey. So I'm not going to kill Doug today with botulism or whatever else I could give him. 2 more minutes. 2 minutes seems like a long time when you're waiting. Oh, but then again, I've always been impatient. Just ask my parents and Doug. 1 minute. I can hear them sizzling in there. Gonna take it out. Just stir it around in the mixture. In the good old butter, honey, onion mixture. And I'll let Doug salt and pepper his own food to the liking that he likes it. Okay, that's good. I think I'm going to put it back in there now. I put it in for, it calls for 35 minutes, but I bake it anywhere from 40 to 50. So I'm going to put it in for another 25 minutes, I think. And then I'll test the potatoes. See where they're at, see if I like the tenderness of them. So I'll be back in about 25 minutes. I'm going to test these to see if they might be done, since they are small chunks. Let me see here. Yep, I think it's only taken 40 minutes instead of 45. I'm going to turn the oven off. I'm going to stir these around one more time and then cover them up. Honey roasted potatoes. Excellent. I'll cover those up because I'm soon going to take the roast out. I only put the roast in for about 7 hours. because it was just a little over 2 pounds instead of 3. And I've cooked them for 7 hours before on low and they get done. So let me put this over here. Now the roast isn't that big because it's only a little over 2 pounds. So let me see. Take this off. Check that. See what I think. Oh wow, it's tender. I'm just gonna cut a slither out. Yep. I'm gonna scoop this into the pan. I'm gonna keep some of the broth on the beef. I'm gonna get a big hefty thing. I'm gonna cut that in half first. A little bit of that broth on there, and that's a rich broth. So if you dilute it a little bit, you can have a good rich broth for noodles and gravy. Let's just see here. I'm going to take a little piece out. Just kind of breaks off. It's real tender. I'll lay this aside because it's going to be hot. I'm going to cover this up. Doug and I are going to be eating good tonight. Excellent roast beef. Excellent roast beef. Very good. So now I'm going to shut this off. I'm going to pour this in a little bit. I'm going to scoop just a little bit out for gravy because I won't need that much. And I'll dilate it. Dilate it. Whoops, that would be interesting. And I'll dilute it. That should be enough. Just about 3 little scoops there because I'll add water to it. I've dropped my tea towel on the floor like 10 times now. And I'll pour the rest in here. And I'm just going to make a few noodles. A little bit in here. That'll be good. A little bit in here. I don't want to dilate it. Oh, jeez. I don't want to dilute it too much, else there'll be no flavor. So you can kind of add the water to your liking. You just see if I stir this around a little bit. Yeah, I don't want to dilute it much more than that. There's not much in here. So I'm going to cook that, put the noodles on, and I just put a little water in it. And I'm going to put the gravy on. I just make my gravy. You can either use flour or cornstarch. It's not much gravy. So I'm just going to scoop out a little flour. Oh, not that little. Just a little flour. I'm going to mix a little water. Until it's kind of like not a pasty, but a thick liquid. So I'll just kind of have to play around with it. I think I got enough here. And I'll try to get out all the lumps. Although when you're eating gravy and you get a big old lump of flour, it's not that bad. So here's the consistency. Not too thick, not too thin. Just something to thicken it. Once it comes to a boil, then I'll turn it down and I'll start adding as I think I need to thicken it, because the longer it sits after it cooks, the thicker it's going to get. And once you put it in the refrigerator, the next day it's going to be pretty thick if you want to use it for leftovers. But Doug doesn't eat the gravy, so it's just whatever I like. I might pack some for Mom and Dad. Now I have about 3/4, well, this might be a half a bag or 3/4 of a bag of noodles. I get the wide egg noodles, or this says extra broad. Cooks in about 7 to 9 minutes. Just let it set, absorb some of the broth, and it goes good with this. Starting to come to a boil. My gravy is first because it's in a smaller dish. Okay, there it is. I'm going to start mixing it up. As I stir it, make sure I get all the flour chunks out. Just do it a little bit at a time because you don't want to get it too thick, and I think I might have it thick enough there. I'll let that cook just a little bit. I'm going to turn it down. Starting to boil. Yep, I think I got it at a good consistency. My noodles are starting to come, and my broth is starting to come to a boil for the noodles. If you have any beef bouillon or anything like that to add to it to give it a little extra flavor, but that broth was pretty rich, so I think it'll be good. Yeah, I got plenty. It's thick enough. Now I just gotta get the lumps of flour out of there. Cornstarch gives it a little bit different texture. That's good too. So you gotta be careful and keep stirring as the flour will stick to the bottom of the pan. I might start with a fork to keep breaking it up. Right there, I don't know if you can see. There's still little gravy, there's still little flour chunks in there, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Okay, the broth is coming to a boil. So I'm going to listen to the instructions. I'm going to read the instructions here. 7 to 9 minutes, it says, till your desired. Some people like their noodles a little firmer than others. I'll probably do it for about 8 minutes, right in between. That's just about perfect. Then you can put whatever you want with it as far as your vegetable. You can get those steam vegetables that you just pop in the microwave. They're delicious. We have some corn in there, whether you have corn, peas, green beans, whatever you want. So you'll have yourself a feast with the roast beef, the gravy, the stuffing, the little honey roasted potatoes, the noodles. It's going to be good. Thanks for joining me once again, and might be back and see what Doug thinks of the meal. Have a great day, everyone. You sleeping, Mr. Miller? Had a long day?
Yep. Long, hard day.
How many potatoes do you want? Just a few?
That's good.
That's good?
The saying is you rode hard and put away wet.
Yep.
I was rode hard and wasn't even put away.
Oh, goodness. I'm just going to give you a big old hunk of beef here. Now,
Where's the beef?
I didn't make any vegetables because I was too lazy, and
Yes.
I'm going to classify our potatoes as the vegetable. So here is the meal. We have stuffing, noodles, roast beef. Doug doesn't like gravy, and potatoes. So Doug, you enjoy your meal. I'm going to be sitting down too, but you know, look, I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to leave and let you enjoy the meal. I've been in the kitchen all day. Do you have anything you want to say? We will pray, but go ahead and taste You have to taste every single thing.
Well, I know you make the stuffing all the time, so I know it's good.
You know the stuffing's good. I've made the honey roasted potatoes before, the roast beef. I've made all that before, and he knows it's all good.
Now, in my country upbringing, the one thing that would top this meal off,
What's that?
applesauce.
Applesauce. I think we might have some, Mr. Miller. Let me go see. Not homemade applesauce, by
Well.
golly. Here you go.
And-
This is the way.
You don't keep your food separated either.
Oh, he's got to mix it all
You
together.
gotta dip a little bit of everything into it. So,
All right.
thank you.
Well, you guys have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in a few weeks with another recipe. We're going to soon start for Christmas desserts, all kinds of good stuff. Well, this is going to air sometime in November. I told him before it's only September. What is it? The 9th.
Well, the next time you see me, I'll be 300 pounds.
Yeah. Have a great day, everyone.